Working together to make Leon County safer. All in. All in. Woo!
All right, everyone, welcome back to the All In LCSO podcast, where we highlight the people and purpose behind the Leon County Sheriff's Office. Today, I'm joined by someone who brings decades of experience. You all know him very well, steady leadership, and a deep understanding of law enforcement to our agency. Today, we have Undersheriff Ron Cave. Welcome.
Well, thank you. You made me feel so old talking about decades.
No.
It's amazing how 30,
well, how many years?
30 years.
30 years.
And it is.
Yeah.
3 decades, but still, it's just
so I love
long.
it. That's great. So Undersheriff Ron Cave plays a key role in supporting the law enforcement, our deputies, strengthening operations here at the Sheriff's Office, and ensuring that the Leon County Sheriff's Office continues to serve this community with professionalism and, of course, integrity. So everyone, welcome the Undersheriff Ron Cave. We're going to start off by giving our listeners a chance to get to know you. And so let's just talk basics, a little bit about your background, how you got started. And I mean, if you want to tell people where you're from.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Thank you, Javonni. It's a pleasure being here today. I was born in Jacksonville and spent a little time in Jacksonville as a kid. A little time in Washington State. Mount St. Helens erupted, and we quickly realized that wasn't a place for us. I was up there when Mount St. Helens erupted, and moved back to Jacksonville, and then basically starting in 4th grade on, I've been in Tallahassee.
Okay.
And went to Astoria Park Elementary, Griffin Middle School,
nice.
And then graduated from Godby High School. And got really involved in the Air Force ROTC program at Godby, and rose to the rank of cadet commander. And I really thought that's the direction I was going to go, is Air Force. And I really wanted, I had a strong desire to serve something larger than myself, and went back and forth between Air Force and law enforcement. And kind of last minute chose law enforcement track.
Okay.
And like I said, been doing it ever since.
Yeah.
30 years.
Nice. And what has kept you in this environment, the career, the law enforcement?
Well, for one, it's never the same thing any day. Everything is different every day. You really have an opportunity to have an impact on people and on their lives and on their trajectory in life. And that's kind of how I got brought into this. And, we meet people oftentimes in their darkest days, and our duty oftentimes is to bring some type of light, some hope, some fairness to their situation. And I really think that's what brought me to law enforcement, and I haven't talked about this perspective of me as a kid until really I started here. So I've been here for almost 7 years now, working for Sheriff McNeil, and he'll say but he's my boss, so I work for him. But I told him my story one day, and he says, "Man, you got to tell other people that. That makes a difference and it's really who you are as a person, and what kind of drives you as a person." But I was abused as a kid, both mentally and physically, and ended up in the hospital in Jacksonville. And I was hospitalized with some head injuries that was committed by my mother, and a police officer came. And that was really my first experience with law enforcement. And that police officer was so caring and compassionate, and really helped me get through that unfortunate circumstance. The unfortunate circumstance turned into a positive, because ultimately I got placed into foster care. And my foster mother was just fantastic in Jacksonville. She was a school teacher, and really, really showed me a different perspective of life, and led me to church, and but I never forgot that experience with that police officer. And when I was trying to figure out, do I do military, do law enforcement, I was like, you know, I was able to see a direct impact on my life by way of a police officer. I think I want to do that.
Yeah.
So I know that was a long response to a very simple question. But
no. And I mean, for those who, you know, even for me, hearing that for the first time, how do you see the correlation between a person's personal life and even, you know, serving as an officer? How important, you know, or the deputies who we work with every day, some of them are parents, some of them are grandparents, and they care about not just the job, but the actual individuals who they may save or who, you know, who they're helping. So law enforcement, you know, we have to be considered as human beings, and sometimes that gets left behind. You know, so how do you see law enforcement, those who may be listening to this conversation and they are in law enforcement, how can they kind of keep that in the back of their mind, like, I'm human and I'm doing this for a purpose? Yeah,
so, you know, that's an interesting perspective. And if you're getting into the field of law enforcement for any other reason than to serve others, then that's probably not the career field that you need to be in. Because, you know, the actual enforcement component is such a small percentage of what any agency does. That's not all that we do. I mean, arresting people, sure, that's a critical aspect and an important aspect of the job, but that's not what we do the majority of the time. The majority of the time is serving the community, serving the public, interacting with people in need of services.
And what does that look like?
Well, and it can be everything from dealing with someone that's having a mental health crisis. That's a big issue, not only in our community, but throughout communities, you know, throughout the entire country. Dealing with the homeless population. That's a big issue that we're dealing with. And people sometimes get critical of us being in those spaces. Like, why is law enforcement in dealing with homeless? Or why is law enforcement dealing with mental health? And it's because that's who people call. You know, there's not a 911 number for homeless or a 911 number for mental health. They call law enforcement. We respond. And we have to be equipped to be able to adequately deal with these people in these need of services. And we have deputies out there every day. I mean, I've seen and I've heard the stories where they'll go out and buy shoes and have the shoes in the back of the vehicle. Wow. They'll have blankets and jackets, and these things are not being reimbursed by the agency. They're doing it because they care. They'll try to bring food to people, and we really have an agency, I believe, of committed public servants that want to serve with a purpose and serve and helping the community. And that I think too is what's unique about the sheriff's office. Is it's not a department. Right. It's an office, and it's the office of the sheriff, which is a constitutionally established agency or office in Florida. And what I think is so unique to us is that the sheriff and everybody that works for the sheriff is directly accountable to the people. Right. We serve the community, we serve the people. Not to say other law enforcement agencies don't serve either, but we're directly accountable by way of the sheriff. And the sheriff appoints deputies, and the deputies have the responsibility of the office of the sheriff. And that's just a very unique perspective that our office has, and I think most everyone in our agency recognizes that. Yeah, that's amazing. And then what about our juveniles? You know, what's happening in the communities, and what's happening in the community, and where are we providing some of that support? Yeah, I obviously grew up in a very disruptive family environment. A lot of alcohol abuse, and I suspect a lot of other people in our community have similar issues. And so we have a lack of a whole family infrastructure, if you will, that I think directly influences and contributes to people sometimes getting into crime. And I think that's what you're seeing oftentimes. I think poverty has a big issue in our community, and you have single parent households. Not to say that single parent households always result in negative, but sometimes those are some residual impacts that we see. And so you see juveniles sometimes getting into drugs and crime and other troubles. So what are we doing about it? Well, one of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to identify these students, these juveniles, fairly early on by working with the Leon County School District, by identifying kids that are getting in trouble with our school resource deputies, and seeing what services might be needed that we can connect. Now, we're not directly providing services to them by way of counseling or other critical services that they need,
Right.
but we'll do referrals to these entities. And we call this program the Council on the Status of Men and Boys. And it's been a very successful program. It's one of the visions that Sheriff McNeil has. And trying to identify students, kids, juveniles in need of critical social services and linking them with those agencies,
Right.
to try to help and try to provide some services.
Yeah, and so when you think, and we'll transition in a little, but when you just think about your background and how you grew up, and then you think about the services that are provided here at the Sheriff's Office, it wraps arms around the children, some who may have grew up or been in similar environments as yourself. You see any type of way where, or from experience, if the thought, what comes to your mind when a child, and I'm saying child up until the age of 18, so anything up under that, when they're in some sort of trouble, your first thought isn't they need to be in jail, and even the sheriff's, his isn't handcuff them.
Right.
What's our perspective here? What is that thought process behind law enforcement actually having a conversation with those individuals and having CSMB, and what's that take on it? Because for those listening, some may say, "Oh, they're just troubled."
Right.
But from your perspective, it's like the background.
Yeah, and they are troubled, but why are they troubled? We want to try to find the root cause to what the issue is. We can go around and arrest people all day long. What's that really solving? Our average daily population over in detention usually stands about 1,000 of persons that we have care and custody of every day. And that's at a cost of around $133 a day that we pay.
Wow.
To care and have that care and custody of these persons. So it's incredibly expensive, and it's also not very beneficial in the sense of changing a person. So to that end, we talk about the Council of Status of Men and Boys. We've also have created, and this was actually one of my first jobs here at the agency in 2019, was the Director of Reentry Services, which is a critical aspect of, we have these persons. Let's see if they want to take some opportunity to improve themselves,
Right.
so that when they are no longer in our care and custody, that they might be able to be productive citizens in the community. And I often think about that with my family as, gosh, if they would have had some of those services when they were getting in trouble with the law, could they have changed?
Yeah.
And I don't know, because we didn't have these. But I think our community, and even you're seeing that with the state prisons, they've got 5 incentivized prisons around the state. Now, that doesn't mean that we're soft on crime. It just means that we are trying to address other issues that these persons have, whether it be housing, whether it be needing jobs and needing skills. So we've tried for how many years of just locking people up and say, hey, you're gonna change because you were locked up. And when they get out, guess what? They don't change.
Yeah.
Let's try something different and see.
Right. And just to talk about, that making that difference, it takes, people like to say it takes a village. So even with law enforcement doing their jobs and our deputies doing their jobs, where does the community come in, and where do they play a role in maintaining also that trust between law enforcement and the community as a whole?
Well, hopefully everybody that's listening has heard about All In. And I think that essentially answers your question, which is a commitment to the mission of the Leon County Sheriff's Office, to the community, and to the deputies who serve every day. We at the Leon County Sheriff's Office recognize that in order to be effective in law enforcement and in us ensuring that our community is as safe as possible. That law enforcement can't do this alone. We have to rely upon the business community, our citizens, everybody in the community to not only support what we're doing, but to also engage in what we're doing as a community and provide assistance services, what have you, to that end. And so I think that's critically important.
Right.
And I think we certainly recognize that has to be. All In is much about service and trust and doing the right thing to support the community.
And then there's the training part. There's constant training here for our sworn deputies on the patrol side and also the correction side. There's always that constant training.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah, there is. So there's state mandated training that you have to do every year. Our agency goes above by far the state mandates. And training is something that is incredibly important that you have to do. And it's not just at the beginning stages of your career. You have to do it throughout your entire career. And whether it's the safety component, whether it's leadership training, whether it's training on new systems and processes, but training is critically important.
Yeah, awesome. And so we have about 5 minutes left. We're just going to look ahead. What excites you most about the direction the agency is heading?
Well, certainly excited about where the sheriff wants to take the agency. We're a year into his new term, and he's indicated that he's running again, which is exciting because he still has a lot that he wants to accomplish, and I want to be a part of that and ensure that we execute the sheriff's vision.
Nice.
Again, that's one of the most important things we do in leadership is ensuring that we execute the sheriff's vision. But also the people, the next generation of deputies, bringing a high degree of professionalism, education, with a strong sense of service to the community. There's a lot of evolving technology that's coming out, everything from drones to new body-worn camera systems to all kind of AI technology. That's exciting and kind of scary.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is that exciting or scary?
Strong community partnerships. But I'll tell you, I think the Leon County Sheriff's Office is very well positioned in Tallahassee, Leon County, to continue to improve public safety while maintaining the trust of our community. And that's exciting to continue.
It is
on that mission,
right?
Every day.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you mentioned it earlier, the All In. What does that mean to you?
Fully engaged, fully committed, not just by day, but by day, by night, by weekend, into ensuring that the mission of the Leon County Sheriff's Office is executed to the community. That we're all about service, trust, and doing the right thing every day, and in reducing crime in Leon County, Tallahassee, for all of our citizens, our visitors, anybody that comes into our community.
Yeah, awesome. For those of you who are listening, we have just completed our top 3 of what we call our command staff. And you've heard from our sheriff, you've heard from Undersheriff Agatha Gilmore, and now you've heard from Undersheriff Ron Cave. And so thank you, Undersheriff, for your continued leadership. And thank you to our listeners for being all in. Is there anything else that you want to mention before we close?
The only other thing I'd mention is if you're out there listening and don't know a lot about the agency, I certainly encourage people to look at our Citizens Academy. That's a great opportunity to get kind of behind the scenes of this organization. Yeah. And certainly if you are interested in employment with the Leon County Sheriff's Office, we have tremendous opportunity on both detention and law enforcement.
Yep. Great.
And to possibly explore that and come and do a ride along or come talk to a recruiter.
Yep, awesome. So make sure you all subscribe and join us for our next conversation.
Working together to make Leon County safer. All in